unconventional interview via Skype with author Alisa Valdes-Rodriguez, who wrote The Dirty Girl Social Club and about 6 other books. So this is a very big deal for BeachMag.com, and I hope you guys enjoy our interview. It's actually about a blog post that she wrote last week, and where she talks about finally admitting to herself and to others that she is bisexual. So please stay tuned and let me know your thoughts with this interview. Thank you. I think it was awesome how you actually put it on your blog and via Twitter, this whole new blog as far as titling it, Trust Me, I'm Bisexual. I had to read it 2 times actually, because I wasn't sure whether or not it was like an excerpt from a book or an upcoming book, or whether it was you talking from yourself. Yeah.
Right.
So talk to me how you came about just writing on it and letting everyone know how you're feeling.
Well, it's basically been something that I've known since I was in high school, but it wasn't something that I felt particularly comfortable talking about for a long time. And I always included, gay themes in my books, although no bisexual characters, but I think I need to do that. And I just kind of pushed it out of my mind. I didn't really think about it because it's risky. I decided when I turned 40 that I was just going to stop caring about stupid things that I've been caring about most of my life. And that was one of them. Just, worrying, am I going to lose readers? Are people not going to like me? And it wasn't something I had even acted on since my early 20s. It's just something that I've known about myself, but that's my dogs. Every lesbian has to have a dog, I'm just kidding. I've noticed that now. I'm actually meeting them. They all have dogs. But yeah, I was married for 12 years, and in a relationship with a guy for 13 years. I have a son, and before that I was in a couple of 4-year-long relationships with men. So the other side of that is something that I never really explored as a person, but that doesn't make it that I wasn't what I was, So I just felt like there aren't a lot of out-bi people, and most of what I see about us out there is kind of insulting. I mean, I think both sides don't really trust you. They think you're confused, or you haven't made up your mind, and that's not the situation at all with me and other people like me. So I just felt like I didn't really care anymore what people thought, and I felt like, well, I did care what people thought. I cared what people like me thought, and I wanted to actually try to be a voice for people like me if I could, and get rid of some of the stereotypes and myths that are out there, I guess.
Yes. And so this was your first time that you publicly said that you were bisexual?
I had done it once before,
okay.
On a website called AfterHelen.com, which is a lesbian website. And after that, I got attacked by a lot of people for it, especially by people putting awful things about me on Wikipedia, which, anybody can edit Wikipedia. So I advise people not to believe what they read on Wikipedia unless it's a locked site. They make it red when the site is locked, and only certain people can edit it. But that was very hard on me, and I did a stupid thing and tried to fight back on Wikipedia. And I was like, oh God, I have to cover this up, because what's going to happen when, my super Catholic readers and people are going to hate me and all this sort of stuff. And then after a while, I thought, that's really stupid too. Why am I doing that? If people hate me, let them hate me. Maybe it's better for people who love me without knowing that to realize that I'm somebody they thought they wouldn't like or wouldn't trust, and just to realize that we're people like anybody else, I guess.
Absolutely. And so for some people who perhaps have not read the blog yet, I'm just gonna, if you don't mind me reading a quote. I just wrote it, from it. So you wrote, quote, though it is hard to come out as gay, there is at least a support network. There is no community to which bisexuals can turn where we will be accepted. We must stand alone. Why do you think that is? And do you think that's very valid for bisexuals worldwide?
I don't know anything about in other cultures. I only know the United States, and maybe a little bit Cuba, I think there aren't any pop culture images. I mean, maybe Kissing Jessica Stein or something, that movie.
I love that movie.
And then, of course, which I love. But then there's a lot, language that we see generally tends to be in male-centered pornography, where, women are doing this just till the man comes back or whatever it is. So it is kind of hard, but it was actually a lesbian friend of mine who said we need more out bi people, because she was very accepting, and I think that I haven't really talked to many straight people. It's a complicated thing. It's a funny thing because as soon as I wrote that blog, I started hearing from married couple friends of mine, who were suddenly like, oh, why don't you come over? That's not what it's about either. I'm not interested in being your toy. I don't want it, both of you. I just, you know what I mean?
They're like, hey, why not?
I'm a normal person. I want to have normal relationships. I want to care about somebody. But for me, physically, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter if they're male or female, because then they think you have no taste or standards. But I do. I have very high standards for both. But who I am, I can do both.
Okay, great. Let's see. For some other readers and viewers who have not gone over to your website, which I'm sure they are after they see this, can you briefly talk to me about your first date with this woman?
Oh yeah. Well, I just decided I had been on Match.com forever for men, and was just meeting one loser after another. It was giving me a headache. I was so tired of it, guys were like, "You're the most beautiful fat woman I've ever," or "You're the fattest woman I've ever found attractive," and that was supposed to be a compliment, or, whatever. It just went. Men are funny, so I thought, I'll just switch it. I'll switch it from men to women and just see what happens. And I heard from a few very nice people. I've only been on 2 dates, as we're speaking now, and one of them was really, really nice, and I've seen her 3 times now, and it was interesting. She identifies just as gay, so it was sort of there's a discussion that had to be had that I wasn't like her and just hadn't figured out my life yet, and she accepts me the way I am. And we talked about it. I think she was the one who told me, and some other people told me, that in the gay community, people are threatened by bisexuals. Somehow they think you're going to be more likely to cheat, which I find is ridiculous, because half the married straight people I know are cheating. Or trying to. They're all unhappy, and it just depends on the person, and I like to think that I'm somebody who, no matter who I'm with, if I'm committed to that person, I've made a commitment to that human being and to that soul, and I'm not going to, so we had that conversation, and it was good.
All right. Again, also, do you have any advice for other people who are bisexual and perhaps they don't know how to come about it and just talk about it?
Well, I would say check out the research that's been done by the Kinsey Institute. Some of it's outdated, but from what they've found, up to 85% of people fall on a spectrum, a sexuality spectrum. There are people who are either at one end or the other, and they're only that, but most people are somewhere in the middle. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they now have interesting ways to gauge that, where in the past you would just have to check boxes and the researchers would have to trust that you're telling the truth. Now they're able to put sensors on your body to measure perspiration and salivation and these sorts of physical reactions that people have. So they're finding out that even people who say, no, I'm nothing like that, when they're exposed to material, same-sex material, they respond very strongly to it, and especially the super heterosexual men, they found it was really interesting. They're responding better to that than to hetero videos. So I actually think it's way more common than people talk about. They get very uncomfortable about it, but come on. Every group of straight female friends I have, anytime we go dancing, as soon as there's a few drinks in them, they're all gay.
Yes.
It's just like, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter, Just be yourself. It doesn't matter.
It's so true. And then you also have a book that's actually out in stores right now, right? And it's The Husband Habit?
The Husband Habit, yes.
So what is that book about?
That book is nothing about what we've been talking about. Well, except for the loser guy part. It definitely has that in there. It's about a woman who keeps falling for men who are married but haven't bothered to tell her that they're married until she falls for them, and so she swears off dating men for a while to figure out what's going on in her head that's making her fall for these people, and then ends up falling for someone else, and I'll just leave it at that.
On Facebook, on my personal account, I was mentioning, and I was just posting if anyone has a question for you, what would they ask you? And one person wanted to know, I'm reading, is from, her name is Indira, and she wrote, is Jennifer Lopez really going to adapt the Dirty Girls Social Club? And if so, when? And who does she play in the movie? Any main characters, or what's going on with that?
Well, about 6 years ago, she was signed on to an option with Sony Pictures for a movie version of the Dirty Girls Social Club, but that option ran out. They basically, what an option means is that Sony Pictures pays me a certain amount of money to have the exclusive right to make the book into a movie for 18 months. And during that 18 months, they were not able to get a screenplay that they liked from the person they hired, and they hired her to do it twice. And by the end of that 18 months, Geely had come out, that movie Geely, and there was a lot of bad press around Jennifer for this reason and that reason, and Sony decided that they didn't want to do the project anymore. So that option is no longer valid, and she's not involved anymore. But the good news is there is another option in place with that book that looks very promising with George and Ann Lopez, George Lopez of The George Lopez Show, and his wife Ann really liked the book, and they are trying now to, they've optioned it along with a producer named Lynette Ramirez, who's amazing, and they're putting it together to pitch it as a TV series in January. They could do it now.
Very nice.
What we're doing, yeah, I'm really excited because they've hired an amazing writer. Everything's in place, and they've done this before. They've gone down this road, and they've fought all the fights that we fought. But they're waiting because George has a late night show that's starting in November on TBS. And we want to give that a couple of months to see that hopefully it's going to be very successful because he's incredibly popular. We think that show is going to be, it's just really funny. He's really funny. So we're going to wait till he's got a couple of months of success with that show under his belt and then start going out and pitching the show. So if you want the Dirty Girls to get made, a good way to do that would be to support George's late night show.
Very nice. Thank you for telling us that. That's really good news. It's exciting.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, I think that's all for me. Do you want to mention something that perhaps I haven't asked you?
No, I mean, those are the big things. The Husband Habit, the TV show that's coming. I'm working on a few projects, but people can find out about that on my website, which is just Alisa Valdes-Rodriguez.com. I'm sure you'll link to it.
Yes.
So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about these things.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's my first time doing this. You are like a fantastic author. Everyone knows who you are. I put it on Facebook. They're like, are you going to interview Alisa Valdes-Rodriguez? I'm like, absolutely, I hope so. And here we are. So this is huge. It really is a big deal for me.
Oh, well, I'm glad I was able to deflower you on your first time.
Well, thank you.